Hello, I'm Reggie York. This is a presentation on defining the problem. This is one module, Module 3, of a set of modules on organizational decision making in human service organizations. Let me speak a little bit about how this module fits with other modules in this training program. We have conceptualized decision making in regard to routine decisions, new opportunities, and problems that have arisen. We've talked previously about the routine decisions and new opportunities. Now we're going to be talking about problems that have arisen. Now we're dealing with a second situation where we're talking about non-routine decisions. This module is about dealing with problems, especially in regard to the issue of how to define the problem. That's the part we're dealing with specifically in this presentation. At the completion of this module, you will be able to conceptualize a problem in regard to context and evidence, define the problem in a way that avoids common pitfalls. The decision process for problem solving, we could look at it in regard to several steps. What is the problem? That's what we're addressing in this particular module. A second one is how can we explain the problem? A third is how can we assign responsibility for determining the solutions to the problem? And four, how can we evaluate possible solutions and make choices? Those are four things that will be addressed. This particular be addressed in the training program about organizational decision making. This particular module will address the first one, which is the question, what is the problem? An organizational problem is a gap between the present condition and the desired condition. That should be fairly obvious. It normally is a condition that raises some degree of alarm, meaning people usually are saying, we got to do something about this. It should be distinguished from routine decisions or new opportunities. Here is a situation. I want you to hit the pause button, look it over, and then come back to me. So you can see here that we're talking about a client no-show rate has become unacceptable, and that we have seen what kind of condition we want to accomplish, and that all key staff see this as a problem. These are three major issues that should be addressed when you're looking at the question of what is the problem. Let me ask you again to hit the pause button, look over this information, and then come back to me. So we want to look at things like the organizational context in which the problem arises. We also want to look at what is the evidence that a problem exists. Do we really have evidence? Is it a good kind of evidence, or is it just one or two persons' opinions? That's very important to determine the extent that a real problem exists. Another issue is who are the critical actors? For example, who has contributed to the condition, who is affected directly by the condition, and whose cooperation is essential to effective resolution. Those are things that you need to become aware of. The first one, who contributed, has to do perhaps with who might have engaged in actions that might have caused the problem. Well, that's important in regard to various aspects of the problem definition process. Look over the situation and then come back to me. Now look at this part, think about it, pause, think about it, and this part. Okay, you've seen the information about the nature of the problem. So now we need to talk about how we should define this problem. A poor problem definition will lead you down a path that is not optimal. How different actors define the problem is an important consideration. You need to have some discussion sometimes among different actors to see how they're seeing it, to see if there is a reasonable amount of congruence among their perceptions. If not, then you've got a little bit of a problem situation right there within the broader problem situation. What is the best way to define the problem that we just talked about in regard to the XYZ military base? Should you define it as the incompetence of the accrediting body, or the need for more staff to help the situation, or the need for a better system for evaluating outcome? Well, I hope you would say the answer is C, the need for a better system for evaluating outcome. The first one tends to seem to be trying to blame other people for this situation. That's not going to get you anywhere, usually. The need for more staff is a little bit short-sighted. It seems to be suggesting that we already have the solution, so let's define the problem in terms of this one solution. That's usually not a good way to go. Objectives should have the same focus as the problem definition. If you define the problem as increased error rates, the objective should be to reduce error rates. If you define the problem as poor staff morale, you should state the objective as improving morale. So don't get these two things disconnected. Make sure you look at those two to see that they are congruent. Some key issues in problem definition. Does it have a proper focus, or do it draw attention to the most important thing? Number two, is there a basic consensus among key actors about the nature of the problem to be solved? Something I just mentioned a moment ago. Number three, is responsibility for problem resolution clear and accepted by key actors? As you look at the question of how to explore how others perceive it, do they see the same situation? Do they see the situation the same as yourself? Do they believe that leaving the situation alone is a bad idea? If not, why not? Do they see it as too low a priority to gain any real attention? Do they see little hope for resolution? Do they see threats with possible change? Each of these possibilities provide you with clues as to what kinds of information reactions you might be seeing, such as um, if they don't see hope for resolution, you're very likely going to see people avoiding responsibility. They don't think there's enough time, they might engage in a little bit of panic. If they don't think it's a priority concern, they're just not going to generate or display very much energy. Do they define the problem the way you do and embrace the same objective? The first tip for definition, don't define the problem in terms of a single solution. It should focus on an important condition rather than a particular solution. Should you define, for example, the problem as not enough staff, or the waiting time for service for new clients has grown so long that prospective clients seriously deteriorate in functioning prior to the beginning of treatment? Well, I hope you see very clearly that the first one is defining the problems in terms of a solution. That's not a good idea. The second one was a much better way to do it. Accept responsibility. Define the problem in such a way as to embrace responsibility rather than blame others. For example, should the problem be defined as nurses are not showing respect for social workers, or just discharge plans developed by social workers are not being executed by nurses? Well, the first one tends to be placing blame, so I would say that B is the better focus for the definition of the problem. Focus on the bigger issue. To the extent feasible, focus the problem definition on things like outcome rather than process, and long-term rather than short-term. That's probably going to get you the best improvement in organizational functioning. So should the problem be defined as Mr. Johnson has a management style that is too authoritarian, or Mr. Johnson's staff has shown major dissatisfaction with his leadership? I would say the latter, because it may be that authoritarian management style is the cause, or there may be something else that's the cause. But what's more important is dissatisfaction. Whether or not a manager's style is a certain one is not by itself as important as whether or not things seem to be going well in the organization. Here is a summary. The key issues in problem definition are focus, consensus, and responsibility. Examine the situation for perceptions of key actors to see if there are obstacles to good problem solving. So perceptions are key here. Avoid common pitfalls of problem definition, such as defining the problem in terms of one solution or placing blame upon others. That's the end of my presentation. I hope this helps.